Scott Disick swears that he isn't a sex addict, and we have to agree, since sex addiction has yet to be recognized as being a real thing and not a convenient excuse. But he definitely has some kind of problem. One of them is just drinking himself to death, so we guess that he has a few problems. His life right now might sound like a fantasy for some people, but he is reportedly far from living the life that he wants right now. People's source close to the situation gives some insight into Scott Disick's state of mind these days. And it's not pretty. In his ideal world, he would still be with Kourtney. We sort of figured that. But absolutely none of his behavior shows him acting like it. Like, if his plan was to make Kourtney jealous, it's backfiring pretty spectacularly. We could, though, we don't think that Scott is putting that much thought into his actions before carrying them out. He wants her back, but he just isn't taking the steps needed to make that happen. That much is abundantly clear. Everything that he does, publicly, anyway, seems almost precisely calculated to drive a further wedge between them. Scott seems to be on a roller coaster of self-destructive behavior, however fun some of it may be. We don't see it ending until he hits his rock's bottom, whatever that may be. The source describes Scott's relationship with Kourtney as is pretty fractured right now. Yep. Scott is really sad about it, and it's part of why he's lashing out. His lashing out takes a few forms. One of them, of course, is his self-destructive behavior that hurts his relationship with Kourtney. Part of that is making sure that it's seen, which is hurtful to Kourtney but also seems to be defiantly thrown in the face of the media. It's like he's mocking the world for paying attention to him, by acting more and more outlandish. But, mostly, he's just partying all of the time. He's in a partying mindset, and Kourtney is obviously not happy with that. There's nothing healthy about their dynamic right now, and we can only see it getting worse. And none of that appears to be Kourtney's doing. The same source claims that Kourtney's relationship with Jans Benjamu isn't much more serious than Scott's innumerable flings. Everyone around her knows she's just having fun and no one expects it to turn into anything serious. In case people are wondering if Kourtney is hypocritical for being so furious with Scott when she's enjoying a boy toy, these are not the same situation. Kourtney isn't getting photographed in Cannes touching Jan's nipple. Jans isn't almost naked and eating a burger out on Kourtney's lawn for reasons that we may never truly understand. You know that Bella Thorne didn't spontaneously decide to do that without Scott's knowledge. Kourtney isn't making sure that she's seen with a new hot young model at every turn, as if she's deliberately trying to make it hard for tabloids to keep track. And, not for nothing, but Jans is 23. Unlike most of Scott Disick's recent friends, he's old enough to drink and therefore quite a bit more age-appropriate. To be clear, Scott has the right to drink as much as he likes, and there's nothing inherently wrong with promiscuity. As we've mentioned before, the problem with Scott's behavior is that he's a father with real responsibilities to his children. That doesn't just mean loving and providing for them, it also means behaving responsibly. These tabloid stories aren't going to vanish from the internet in a year. They'll follow his children, even though they're shielded from them now, for the rest of their lives. That's not fair to them. And, on some level, Scott knows it. As we've mentioned before, Scott appears to be trapped in a horrible spiral. He acts impulsively, drinking and having sex. He looks back on what he's done and is filled with regret and self-loathing. That self-loathing doesn't motivate him to try to repair the damage. Instead, he's driven to still more self-destructive behavior. This is a guy who's basically been on a bender for the past, 7 months? Benders, like parties, always come to an end at some point. When he hits his rock's bottom, whatever form that ends up taking, he might decide to change. If he survives,